Hey everyone, it's Elle Hayes. Welcome back to my channel. I have a video for you that I've made you wait a little bit on, and I apologize, but here it is, and I won't keep you waiting this time. Age of Streaming Part 2. So without further ado, let's get into the video. So if you haven't seen part 1 of Age of Streaming, I would recommend you check that out first. I will link it. And I'm saying that only because I give you the foundation for everything immediately, so you have an idea of how we got to the Age of Streaming in the first place. So that might be a helpful place to start, and then come back to this video. Or you cannot, you can say screw it and only watch this one. Really doesn't matter to me, just thought I'd give you that piece of information. So on the other video, I focused mostly on the negatives of streaming and how it really dramatically changed a lot of business models for many artists that had started before streaming was a thing, and how people were struggling to adapt to these changes. So in this section, I'm going to focus primarily on the positives and how streaming has actually saved the industry, although I don't know that I'd go that far, but it has provided some positives and benefits for many artists. Before the age of streaming, the only way for you to really gain an audience was to tour. You didn't really have a choice. You couldn't have much of a reach without physically going out there to create a community and viewership for yourself. Now, with streaming, and you can include things as YouTube as well, and social media in general, you have the ability to connect with your fan base without ever having to leave the comfort of your home, which can have its downsides. For instance, there are individuals that have such a big following online, but those don't translate to big ticket sales when they go to sell shows, when they eventually attempt to do tours. But overall, it does mean that you can be an artist without having to put in all the time, effort, and hours into a tour. And I'm not saying it's not hard to do it without touring, or that it's not a lot of work. But I am saying that people who would never be able to reach a fan base in a different country can now do that without having to physically go there, and that's an incredible luxury that we didn't have before. In addition, something I don't think too many people have brought up is there are many individuals who want to do music, but perhaps due to physical limitations, handicaps, things of that nature, they weren't able to really pursue it to the extent they wanted to before the age of streaming. And now they can. They can be a substantial force on Spotify or other platforms similar to it, and have a community and be able to support themselves financially with their music because of this luxury. I'd mentioned in the previous part that there were artists that were struggling to adapt to the changes that happened when streaming decimated this industry. While that did happen, that was primarily to artists that started before streaming was a thing. Most of us are now so familiar with streaming and really grew up being a part of this streaming generation that it's not really going to impact our business models to the extent that it would someone who started before. And because of this, there are many artists that are thriving because of streaming. I'm going to link my sources below, but I'm specifically referencing an article by The Guardian where they interviewed someone within the music industry who had been managing and working with artists through labels that otherwise would have been dropped if they had been signed before streaming was around. They mentioned that they had many artists they worked with that had low album sales, and they were dropped from their labels because of it. You had to hit a certain threshold for a record label to find you profitable and keep you around. Remember, there would be no reason for a record label to keep you if you weren't making X amount in sales for them. At the end of the day, this is a business and they need to be profiting from their investments. So if you weren't able to sell the records, there wasn't much of a point to keeping you around. Your music needed to sell. It needed to show that people wanted you. In the article, there's an example of this soulful singer named Jones, who would have been dropped had she been signed when streaming was not around. She failed to make the top 200 when her album released. However, she has over 70 million streams on Spotify. And because of that, she's able to be kept by a record label because she's showing profitability. Seeing this example though, I did have a question, and it's not just to play devil's advocate, but genuine curiosity. I wonder, and take this from someone who is an amateur, I wonder why some people are able to get so many streams and those not translate to album sales. She wasn't breaking the top 200, and she wasn't able to sell out big venues in her area that should have been her prime market. Is that due to an inappropriate distribution of funds for promotions, where she maybe wasn't being highlighted in her appropriate demographic? Because clearly there's a demand for her if we're seeing high volumes in streams. But another thing that I had kind of touched on in part 1 is while we're able to gain a massive audience because of streaming services, those don't always translate to people willing to then spend the money and time to see us live. Does this give us a misconception of what is truly popular and profitable outside of the internet when we only look at their streaming numbers? It's something to keep in mind. But at the end of the day, someone like Jones is able to have a career because of that 70 million plus streams that she's getting on her music. That's pretty incredible that someone who wouldn't have been able to have a career in music before this day and age is now able to actually sustain a career and make enough money to survive with music alone. Piggybacking off of that entire concept, unlike when we purchased albums in the past, every time your song is streamed, it makes money. It may be a very, very, very small fraction, and we went over that so many times before, and I said it wrong sometimes, but it was posted correctly in the video. 0.006 to 0.008, give or take, was what you were making per stream on Spotify. And as tiny as that is, that's for the lifetime of that song being on there. So in theory, you can rack in hundreds of thousands, millions of streams on a song in its lifetime. That money will constantly be coming in. People who were interested in your song a month or two ago can listen to it again in a month or two, even now, years from now, and that will still count towards your money and revenue that you're taking in. That's completely different from the previous model, where it was a one-time exchange. I purchased this song, I purchased this album, and that was it. You would never make a penny off me again for the entirety of me listening to that album or those songs for the rest of my life. It's different now. So you could have a song that wasn't a hit when the album first came out. Now it's a hit, and now it's racking in all that dough every time someone clicks play. And because of that, there are people who are really making bank on that. That's pretty incredible. Couldn't do that before with just trying to physically sell your copies of CDs. And the final thing I wanted to touch on, with this day and age of streaming, and this is going to spill a little bit into the internet as a whole, you can be independent as an artist. You didn't really have that luxury before. You needed a team around you to build the fan base, to build the hype, and promote you properly, and give you the connections you needed in order to make those sales, in order to become a memorable artist who could reach the hits and the tops of the charts. But now, because of the age of streaming, you can be an independent artist. You can do everything within your own shop. For instance, the DTTMIIM is a completely internal band, and by that I mean they work strictly with their family and close friends to help make their band successful. So all the money stays within the family, which is nice. They don't lose any of their hard work to all these other parties that they needed to hire in the past to be successful. Streaming has allowed artists to take back a little more control. Despite the fact that they feel that they've lost a lot with the numeric value of their songs seeming to dwindle, I think they sometimes forget how crucial freedom is. Having the ability through the internet to be able to create your own fan base, to be able to promote yourself how you want, to not have to make the songs that your record label's telling you to, but making what you feel like making. Not having to just adhere to these standards set by someone else who's not involved in the creative process. That's so crucial, and I think can help contribute to the longevity of an artist and the genuine feel behind an artist. I think sometimes when people had to sign really bad record deals, which we will get into, and I mentioned we will, when people had to sign those really bad record deals, they kind of had to sell a bit of themselves away. You couldn't stick to exactly who you were all the time because normally a record label or a team had a different image in mind on what would sell. You don't have to do that anymore. People still do go down that path, but this has given artists the opportunity to take back control of their careers and their life. With that in mind, I don't think that all the negatives I brought up in the previous part would be enough to outweigh the positive of having control over yourself, having creative freedom. I think many artists, when they get further along this career path, would feel the same, as they recognize how important it is to have that to yourself and your band, and not having someone else take that from you just to have a better paycheck or a steady paycheck. It's interesting because this will segue into my next video I want to do on really bad record deals or record labels in general. And I'm wearing a Day to Remember shirt, so if you remember their story and how they pushed to have more creative freedom, that'll make sense to you. But without further ado, we're gonna wrap up this video. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope I gave you enough facts, even though it wasn't as number-based as the previous one. I think some of the nice parts of positives of streaming is actually it's very intuitive. A lot of it is just artists are benefiting because they can be their own boss, which at the end of the day is kind of something we're all still striving for in this creative field. I hope this gave you a lot of information. If you didn't check out part 1 yet, I suggest you go do so. And be sure to like, subscribe, leave a comment, let me know your thoughts and what videos you think I should do in the future. Oh, and before I wrap up, I wanted to throw in one other thing. So if you did not know, I'm a part of this group called Nerds Alive. We do stuff over on Twitch, and I have that linked in the description. We will be doing a charity day for Extra Life, which is on November 2nd. We're going to be doing a 24-hour stream to help raise money and have it donated to local children's hospitals. If you'd like to donate, please click the link below. If you can't afford to financially be a part of it, at the very least, tune into our stream November 2nd to November 3rd. It's gonna be a great time, and I hope to see you all there. Thanks guys, I'll see you in the next video. If you liked this video, click on these! More options. Don't you love it? I love more options. Just keep clicking.